Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. And it's just Marco here once again. Safi will be watching this movie no matter how hard she fights, no matter how much she cries. She will be forced to watch this movie, because she doesn't like watching 3-hour movies, and I don't either, but you just have to be in the mood for it. You have to be ready for it and just settle in and enjoy the ride. And what I'm talking about is Oppenheimer. I finally watched this movie. I really wanted to see this movie in theaters back when it came out, but obviously the anxiety disorder made it impossible. And I'm glad that I waited because like the anxiety that you could get from watching this movie alone would have like caused me to have like a really bad attack and probably like pass out because like the editing is so chaotic and the music is so intense and the editing is insane and it's just like wow. It is an indescribable experience, this movie. Like, even though for the past couple of months, you hear all these people and, they just say it's good because it's Christopher Nolan and, they'll say that anything he makes is good. Or you hear these people and they're like, this is cinema. And it's like, even after all that, really it was setting up this movie for failure with me because I tend to not really be on everyone's side when it comes to, like, the bigger films. Like, I tend to be, like, the one who's like, it was good but not great or something like that. But even after all that praise and after all of that, like, the hype, the hype is really what I have a problem with. Like, hype can kill a movie for me because if a movie doesn't live up to the hype, I get really mad about it. And honestly, like, this movie blew my expectations away. It was so good. It was so epic. And I just love the movie. I think it is better than Killers of the Flower Moon. And there's one big reason why. When I talked about that movie, I said as good as that movie is amazing as that movie is, the music is trash. And the music in this movie is probably the greatest music of the year. In fact, it might even be like better than any of the music from any movie for the past couple of years. It was so perfect. It worked with the movie so well. It just made every moment have an impact. An impact is like as big as the bomb in this movie had. Like, that's how impactful this music was. It was so good. And it's like this movie shows you how to do music in a film. Like, the guy who did the music for Killers of the Flower Moon, he should watch this movie because he's going to hate it. Like, because if the guy who had done the music for Killers of the Flower Moon would have done this movie, you just would have had, like, casual, old-fashioned music playing, like, throughout this whole movie. And it's like, no, fuck that shit. We want real music playing, music that was made specifically for this movie to heighten the impact that these moments should have, because the music, can't believe the music was this good. The music was too good. Like, who did the music for this movie? Who's the genius who did the music? Like, the guy who did the music for this movie, he deserves a movie about Ludwig Göransson. Ludwig Göransson. What a badass. He made perfect music. And of course, he did the music for Black Panther? Cool. Well, see, the first Black Panther had really good music, but oh wow, he did the music for Creed too? Ew. So I guess he could either be really good or really bad. But wow, the music in this movie, I don't think it can be said enough how good the music in this movie was. Like, if this movie didn't have this music, I would easily, like, take down 1 star. Like, 1 full star. And the reason why is because the first act of this movie is not very good. In the first act of this movie, they do a really clumsy, terrible job of introducing this character of J. Robert Oppenheimer and showing, like, his background and talking about quantum physics. Like, I don't even know what quantum physics is after watching this movie. I still don't know. Like, maybe it's because I wasn't paying enough attention. Maybe it's because I need to slow it down so I can, like, process it more. Like, process each scene as they're just rapidly going through the events. And I think, like, another issue with the first act is the fact that, like, it goes by so fast. There's no room to breathe. And, like, the second and the third act, both of those acts in this movie feel like there's a lot of breathing room. And it feels like even though there's a lot of stuff going on and it's over the course of time, years, it feels a lot more together and a lot more focused and just well-paced. But that first act is horribly paced and very confusing and messy. And I really wasn't liking the movie at all. And I was thinking, oh, I'm going to have to suffer through this 3-hour trash movie and then give it a bad review and have everybody be like, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm unsubscribing. But then the second act happened, and as soon as the second act started, I immediately started to pay more attention again because I was into it. I was, like, engaged. I was thoroughly engaged. And I was just glued to the screen for the rest of the movie. Even though after the second act, there is this kind of dip where you feel like, really, they could have taken out the second act and they could have made that its own movie and then added more stuff with the impact of the bomb. And then, like, that could have been its own movie. And then this could have been another movie or something. Because, like, the second act really feels like what the movie wanted to show. Like, it felt like everything, even though you have this first and third act, the stuff that happens in that, it really felt like the part that Christopher Nolan was attracted to doing was the second act, where you have all these scientists and their families, and they've moved to this Los Alamos fake town in the middle of Nowheresville to build this bomb. That was the part that he wanted to do, and that was the part that was just awesome, and it was epic, and it was incredible. It was amazing. I can't think of any more words. Exceptional. But then after that, there's like a slight dip, but then it builds back up again, and it's like, oh shit, this movie still has legs. It's still going somewhere, and then by the end, it's just like, it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. And so, see, this is what happens when I watch a good movie, guys. Like, if you're wondering, like, all the people are like, Maggie, you're too negative. Like, this is what happens when I watch a good movie. And I want you guys to keep that in mind when I review a really bad show tomorrow, American Horror Story, Season 7. Keep that in mind, because I'm going to be the opposite of, like, how I am right now. And so let's kind of go through. I'm not going to, like, really get into the story very much, because I'm going to sound like an idiot, and I'm going to sound like, whatever. But I'll just go through, like, the bare bones, like, whatever I need to go through to make you guys understand what I thought. I would say, in terms of acting, I loved Cillian Murphy. Is that how you say it? Cillian Murphy did a phenomenal job. Emily Blunt, even though she wasn't in the movie as much, she did a really, really, really good job. I was particularly happy with her performance, but it wasn't as good as Lily Gladstone's, obviously. And then Matt Damon did really good. He was really, really surprisingly good. You know, I'm not a fan of Matt Damon. Like, he is just so, like, vanilla white pudding, or not white pudding. What the fuck? Why the fuck did I say white pudding? He is fucking white bread. He is vanilla. No, not vanilla. God, what? Ugh. Why am I doing that? I'm thinking about pudding too much. He is Wonder Bread. Is like a leading man, kinda, but I think that, like, he is actually surprisingly good sometimes. You know, when I see him, though, all I think about is the fortune favors the bold. You know, if you guys don't get that reference, look it up. It's really hilarious. Robert Downey Jr. did a really, really good job. Now, here is the one person. And now, I'm not saying that she did a bad job, quote unquote, but I felt like her character, I really wanted to see a lot more of her character in the first act, and that is Florence Footnote Pew. Now, she's got a couple of nude scenes in this movie, which this is yet another movie where this apparently epic filmmaker needed a babysitter to film a nude scene. I will say that. I mean, that is pretty embarrassing and stupid. But she did a good job for the time that she had. But I was just like, you know, she really is a footnote in this movie. And I really wish that she would have been a much bigger part of it. Because I was interested in her character. You know, she was kind of like a femme fatale type character, and I really wanted to see more of her, and I was kind of disappointed with that, especially since, you know, Oppenheimer really loved her, and he also really loved his wife, and, you know, her death, spoiler alert, had a huge impact on him, and I felt like that emotional moment was not earned, because, like, you didn't really feel like you knew her character very much, except for the fact that she liked to call him all the time, even though she wasn't interested or something. Like, she played this little game with him, and then she'd throw his flowers away that he'd get for her. But I was interested in that, and, you know, they just drop it. They just drop her off of the movie. Like, Florence the Footnote in this movie, for sure. And then a lot of other great performances too. I would say the other one that I would probably mention as being my favorite out of all the other actors, because this cast is stacked. This cast cost a lot of money. And, you know, I would say that Benny Safdie, one of the directors of the Safdie brothers, I felt like he was actually really, really good. And I really liked him in this movie. So, now let's get into... do I really want to go into the plot details? No, not really. Because, see, this is what happens. When I like a movie, I can't really get into anything because it's just going to sound like me, like, kissing you-know-what. Like, it's not going to really sound like an intellectual discussion where I'm like, oh, I really enjoyed the subtleties of that part, and then the black and white hit the screen just right. It's like, it's not going to work at all. So, I don't know if I should prolong this review any longer, or does that even make any sense before I do the food review? Okay, I do have something that I could discuss. Is in terms of Christopher Nolan movies, this is probably in the top tier of his filmography. Like, I feel like some of his movies are overrated. In particular, I really hated Interstellar. I thought that movie was a piece of trash. And, Inception is pretty good, but it's really not like the greatest thing I've ever seen. Um, I felt like the concept was better than the movie itself. Um, but like this movie, it might even be his best movie, in my opinion, because I really felt like the emotional impact of everything that happened to this character throughout the movie, except for the first act. I really liked the third act, even though it was like a courtroom drama type thing where it's just this very small, confined room. And what I really loved about it was the fact that, like, in the second act, they're in this like big open environment in this fake town in the middle of the desert, and they just have all this room to do whatever they want, and it just constant like landscapes and landscapes. And then he even has like a ranch that he likes to go to and ride horses around there. But then in the third act, it basically just all takes place like in this small little fucking room where he just has this rigged kangaroo court against him, all about taking away his security clearance. And it is a rigged game because there's this corrupt jackass guy, an admiral played by Robert Downey Jr., and he has a personal vendetta against him. And what I really love too was the fact that, like, there's a certain part in the movie where one of the characters asks, like, I wonder if the truth will ever get out. And then it gets out when Robert Downey Jr. is going to be confirmed to be a part of Eisenhower's cabinet, which, Eisenhower doesn't need shitheads like him. And so it came out there, and then also it came out with this movie. Like this movie, all these millions and millions of people now, forever, they're going to remember this real life person for being this like petty little baby who rigged this stupid humiliation trial against Oppenheimer because he might have said something bad about him to Albert Einstein. Like, like, guys, like, even if one of my worst enemies, like, said something bad about me to Winona Ryder, like, I would not, like, try to do what Mr. Strauss did in this fucking movie. Like, that's how bad this guy is that, like, he has so many other important things to be concerned about with, like, just everything that's going on at that point, like the Cold War and everything. And his main priority is taking down a guy because he's mad at him. And wah. It's kind of like so cartoonish that it's like Doctor Strangelove, where it's like, people like this really, in the government, they're really like this. These types of people, these big suited people, that's what I just call them, suited people. Like him, they're really petty and stupid and childish like this. So yeah, what else should I say? And I'm saying that because, like, I just can't think of much else to say besides I really liked it. And it's pretty clear that, there's movies like The Marvels that come out, and then there's movies like this that come out. You know what I mean? And I will also say, too, I really wish that we could have seen more of the impact of the bomb, but at the same time, I get what they were trying to do with, like, they have this part where he's inside this, he's at, like, a press conference, and he starts, like, hallucinating that the whole crowd has been wiped out by the bomb, And then there's some kind of like horror visuals with that. But it's very like small in comparison to, what they could have shown and what I was expecting for them to show, because I think that a lot of people who didn't like this movie as much, I think that they were expecting after that second act to see more of that impact and to get like a different side of things about what was going on. But at the same time, like when you look at the movie, this is this guy's biopic. It is just about his life, and it would be, I don't know, because I really got what they were doing. As when the third act ended and when the movie ended, I understood like why they chose to do what they did in the third act and why the movie went in kind of a different direction. Because this character is a tortured character. He is a very flawed character too. And that's another thing, is that like you have all these movies nowadays like Barbie, where like these characters, these female characters, they can do no wrong. And they're just perfect people. And they have no flaws. They start thinking about death, or they start getting, what's that shit called? The stuff in the legs, like whatever that they're complaining about in that stupid ass feminazi movie. Like, oh wow. Like they don't have any flaws at all or anything interesting to their characters. But you have this movie Oppenheimer with this male character, and he is like the most flawed character in the universe. Like this guy, he's a very complex character. He's not just like a perfect like hero guy character. He's a very interesting character with a lot of layers to him, and it's just the total opposite of what we see with like these terrible female characters nowadays. So I would say that's another thing to point out. Why the movie is so much better than most of the movies that came out this year, So, well, actually, I will say, obviously in Killers of the Flower Moon, you did have flawed female characters for sure, but they were very, very good characters in that. But in general, for this year, like, that's what I would have to say to that. So, in terms of food, I knew what I was going to give this movie as soon as, like, the second act ended. And that is, I used to get ice cream a lot at the store and eat ice cream in a bowl every night. And, some days I would even eat ice cream for breakfast sometimes. And then I would get a stomachache. I don't do that anymore. But there was this one ice cream that I used to get from Kroger a lot, and it was Private Selection Extreme, or what do they call it? Extreme Huge, or what do they call that? They just call it like Extreme Chocolate Fudge Moose Tracks ice cream. And so what it is you have this chocolate ice cream, and that would be the music. Because the music holds this movie together. And then you have these little, like, chocolate hard pieces that I guess those are supposed to be the moose tracks. And I really do not like them. I can't remember if they had some sort of filling inside them or not. But regardless, I'm not really much of a fan of them. That would be the first act of the movie, because they're all over the place, and it seems like you just can't avoid them, and it really, like, it's the worst part of the ice cream. But then they have this fudge, and that is the part of the movie that's really, really good. And they had these huge, like, globs of fudge, and it was really chewy and delicious, and it was the greatest part of the ice cream, and you just couldn't wait to get, and you just ate and ate and ate. And so, like, that's why I stopped getting it, because I kept on eating until I got to these huge fudge pieces that I really liked. And that's like this movie. It's like, honestly, I could watch it again right now. It's 3 hours. Who fucking cares? Like, I'd rather spend 3 hours watching this than watch 3 episodes of that American Horror Story Season 7. Or something else that's really bad. But no, I can't, because I gotta watch Fargo tonight, too. So, fun. I'm going to have to do 3 reviews tomorrow, but at least Sophie's going to have to do them too. You know, she's not going to be able to get out of that one. So anyways, please like this video and comment and tell me what you thought of the movie. And I should also mention this. For this year, it feels like for like a couple of really big name directors, Ridley Scott, Martin Scorsese, Christopher Nolan, you know, auteur directors, I guess you call them. Each of them got a shit ton of money to make a movie that who knows if the modern audience would like or not, because the modern audience is mostly troubled, to say the least. So, and, you know, you saw with Ridley dipshit Scott, he made a terrible movie. It was basically like the Kangaroo Court, but for Napoleon, where they're just making fun of him for 2.5 hours. They sucked all the color out of the movie. And, you know, Ridley Scott, he really wasted all that $200 million that he got. And then Martin Scorsese, he used his money pretty well. But I feel like he needs to stop relying on these people who, you know, he works with every single movie. Because he does have a great editor, you know, Velma Schoonmaker, I think her name is. You know, he's worked with her forever. You know, she does a really good job at editing. But that guy who did the music and did the music for the last couple of movies of his, he's trash. And he did a terrible job. And the movie is good in spite of the terrible music. But, like, Lily Gladstone was the best part of that movie. And she was somebody who he had never worked with before. And somebody who didn't do a lot before this movie. And so I really feel like he did not really use the money that he got to the best extent either. Because I feel like he should have spent money on getting the guy who did the music for Oppenheimer so that we could have gotten like some emotional impact in the movie with all these innocent Native Americans being killed for money. But then for Oppenheimer, I really feel like out of all 3 of these auteur directors, Christopher Nolan really did the best job at using the money that he was able to get to make this huge project. And so, you know, that's surprising to me because it really feels like most of the time Christopher Nolan gets in his own way because he overcomplicates things and he does this cutesy, clever editing stuff where he just jumps all over the place and you gotta follow it as much as you can without throwing up like you're on a roller coaster ride. But he pulled it off. I can't believe it. I'm shocked. So yeah, please like this video and comment and subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more honest reviews. Goodbye everybody, see you soon.